You know what is this? No, it's a Helmholtz resonator. It's a Christmas ornament only during Christmas, but otherwise the rest of the year it's a Helmholtz resonator. Helmholtz resonators are very interesting because a cavity like so, and the fluid is oscillating on the neck, and there is a pressure reduction. Where pressure is reduced in the fluid tends to go there, from high regions, for high pressure regions to low pressure regions. So air is going to move into the neck, like so. Now, comes into the neck and sees a region of high pressure again and shoots out as a jet. So I'm going to show you that effect. Okay. So I'm going to just increase the sound level. So I'm essentially making these oscillations very large, and so it pushes even more air. You see the deflection of the plane? You see that? Okay, now I'm going to extinguish it because when I close this cavity, the resonant frequency is going to take on larger, the sound level is going to be a larger amplitude because that frequency in this cavity is resonant to this cavity, and by closing it, I have no losses, or I reduce the losses, that is. And so the amplitude of the sound is going to be bigger now inside the cavity. So pay attention to the flame. Okay, I extinguished it. My two Helmholtz resonators on a pivot, and there is the bearings right there allow for that kind of motion. Actually, let me start it this way. So I'm going to start it the opposite direction.
This is pH 3451, the Helmholtz resonator experiment. Now, you've all experienced a Helmholtz resonator by simply blowing on the end of a soda bottle. So now you're going to do a more careful and qualitative analysis of a Helmholtz resonator. So we're going to use a glass sphere here, which is an old chemistry flask. It has a volume of 3 liters, or 3,000 milliliters. And we've got a series of aluminum tubes that will slip in here to act as the neck. We have 4 of these tubes, and as you can see, each one of them has a different inner diameter to give you a different resonant frequency. We'll start by picking one of the aluminum necks, putting it in the sphere, and then we have this Audio-Technica lapel microphone that is battery operated that we'll drop into the sphere and make sure that it's in the sphere volume and not in the neck. And then we'll place it over by the loudspeaker. I'll turn on the power amplifier. So here's my drive signal right here. And I'm going to start sweeping down, starting at 100 Hertz, and I'm going to watch for the resonant frequency by looking at the microphone signal right here. I'm going in 1 Hertz increment right now, and as you can see, it's a really sharp cue. So I'm going to reduce the increment to 1/10 of a Hertz and zero in on that resonant frequency, which is right about here, 64.9, 65 Hertz. Notice also, as I change the frequency, as I go above and then below, how the phase between the drive signal and the microphone signal changes. So to calculate the Q of the resonance, you're going to need the half power frequencies. So you can read the microphone voltage either here on the voltmeter, or this oscilloscope will read it out right here. So we'll say 60.7 millivolts. 1 over root 2 times that is 42.9 millivolts. So I'm going to go up from the resonant frequency in increments of 1/100th of a Hertz. And I'm going to find the frequency where the microphone voltage drops down to 42.9 millivolts. Right here, about 65.92 Hertz. Now I'll go below the resonant frequency and look for the lower frequency where the microphone voltage drops to 42.9 millivolts. And that's right about 64.03 Hertz. Repeat your measurements for each of the different necks. So for the last part of the experiment, instead of changing the neck size, we're going to change the volume size by adding water in 500 milliliter increments. So I'm going to go ahead and add 500 milliliters of water. And I'm going to pick one of the necks, in this case the first one that I showed you. We'll add the microphone, being very careful not to dip it in the water. So now we'll look for our new resonant frequency. As you can see, at 65 Hertz, the amplitude has dropped. So let's change the frequency and find that new resonance. And as you can see, it's somewhere around 70.9 Hertz now. So it's gone up almost 6 Hertz. Now I'll add another 500 milliliters of water. again, be careful not to drop the microphone in the water. And we look for our new resonant frequency. And it's right here at about 78.7 hertz. Add more water. Find the new resonant frequency. .7 hertz.